Good morning, my dear students. I hope you all are very excited for the new chapter which we are going to start today from our textbook An Alien Hand, Class 7th, Chapter 6. I Want Something in a Cage, written by L.E. Grieve. It is the story of a nature lover who shocked the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper was an elderly person. It was unusual for him to have a buyer who negotiated for a pair of doves and then set the birds free. The shopkeeper was bewildered at such unexpected behavior. The story hints at the strange behavior of a man with the shopkeeper. The two characters are introduced with details. Mr. Purcell is the shopkeeper who kept birds' cages, seeds, etc. in his shop. Once he was visited by a customer who left behind a musty smell of an abandoned house. His visit was uncanny and ghostly. Mr. Purcell had a gently appeal, in short stature, having red cheeks. He also dealt with fish food and bird seeds. Persisting noise of movement of caged animals and birds was ignored by the men. He placed and organized the cages that anyone who enters get fascinated with Mr. Purcell welcomed his guest cheerfully. Mr. Purcell was accustomed to opening his shop, having a place at the counter and scan through every minor detail written in the newspaper. One usual foggy morning in winter, there entered a visitor. His entry was unusual, as he missed a bell that rang when anyone enters. But that day it did not ring. So he remembered that entry as materialized out of the air. Mr. Purcell welcomed him smiling, even though he knew that the visitor did not like him at all. The man wore ill fitted new clothes and squeaky shoes. He looked around and avoided looking at Mr. Purcell. Now, what happened, students? Mr. Purcell broke the ice by talking about the weather. In turn, the visitor asked for something in a cage. When he asked if it could be a rat, the visitor replied that a bird would be all right. He then asked for price for dove. The man did not like the amount he charged for him. He put forward a $5 bill to offer. Purcell smiled after calculating the profit he was going to have. The man picked up the cage and constant chattering had annoyed him. Mr. Purcell did not like the behavior. He wanted to throw him out of the shop. The man informed him that it took him 10 years to collect $5. Then he was given a cheap suit. Shocked at his uncanny behavior, Mr. Purcell advised him to take care of doves, but he was stopped in between. The man even put the cage shoulder high and stared at the birds. Then he released the dove one by opening the cage. He looked at the flying birds until they disappeared in the mist and then he melted away. Mr. Purcell, surprised by every move of visitors, felt insulted. See, student, setting those birds free was his way of realizing the pent up pain of being caged in prison for 10 long years. When Mr. Purcell saw the man setting the birds free, he felt insulted rather than realizing the smallness of his profession. This is the story. I hope you all understand the story very well. Thank you, student.